Hey, good evening. This is Tyler Franklin with Axis Seed. It's April 2nd, right around 6 o'clock. I hope you and your families had a really nice Easter. I'm standing in my warehouse. I've got seed corn going out the door every day now, shipping it all across the state of Virginia. I've got plot seed that I'm separating out in the next couple of weeks. We're going to start putting in a lot of plots. It's that time of year again. It kind of snuck up on us. This time last year, planters were rolling across the state of Virginia. We had a nice warm spring. The ground was warm. This time of year, it's been the opposite. This year, it's been really, really cold. We had a little warm spell last week that got some people thinking about planting. In fact, it actually got a few planters in the field, but this weekend it's supposed to be back in the lower 30s. And I've had a lot of people who have called me the past couple days and asked about soil temperatures and when's the right time to plant. Many farmers have got the planters ready to go. The planters are rebuilt, they're greased up, they're hooked to the tractor. They're just sitting there waiting on go. They're waiting for the right time. And I want to take a few minutes and talk about what that right time really is and what we need to be doing if we end up planting in the cooler soils. So keep in mind, I understand that every farm operation is different. I understand that there are different management requirements, and some operations may need to get started a little bit earlier than others in order to get the job done in a timely manner. But the fact remains, seed corn does not care about your management styles. It does not care about calendar date. It does not care about time restrictions. Seed corn germinates at 50 degrees, and temperatures below that can cause a reduction in yields. In the ideal environment, soil temperature would be 55 degrees at a 2-inch depth, and the forecast would show a warming trend. That would be ideal. We can't often wait for the ideal environments and get it all done, but I think it's important for you to be aware of the risk that is involved with planting into soils that are too cold. I hope by now most of you all understand or have read about the importance of even emergence. It's one thing David Hewler really talks a lot about, is having a really even emergence on your corn stand. One big factor that can influence uneven emergence is planting in the cooler soils. And I emphasize this again just so you understand, what's at risk when you're planting into cooler soils. 3, 4, 5 days after you plant the seed in the ground, it will absorb moisture. So that 3rd, 4th, and 5th day, it is critical that the water that seed absorbs is warm. If the soil temperature is under 50 degrees at that particular time, seedling injury can occur and yields are likely to be reduced. I want you to take time to think about this. The yields that you will harvest 5 months from when you plant can be affected and can be reduced as early as 3 days after you plant that seed. And I can't overemphasize the importance of planting into the right conditions. Another thing I want to mention is the importance of planting your seed at the right depth. I've been shocked with how many farmers I've seen plant the seed corn too shallow. Corn seed needs to be planted 2 inches deep for proper root formation and development. I'd rather plant corn seed 3 inches deep than 1 inch, and there's a proven yield reduction when corn seed is planted more shallow than 1.5 inches. And I want to describe this to you by comparing that soil that's on top of the seed to insulation. You've got thick insulation that protects that seed from the temperature fluctuation. You've got thin insulation that doesn't protect it as much, and you've got insulation that's poorly installed. Thick insulation is corn that's at the proper depth. It's got a thick layer of soil over top of it, and it's not letting that cool air at nighttime get down on that seed. The other thing that can be a factor in thick insulation is more fine textured soils. So your heavier soils don't let air flow through it as much as a coarse soil, so the temperature doesn't fluctuate as much. The thick insulation protects that seed from the cooler temperatures and gives you a much more insulated, protected blanket. Thin insulation would be seed that's planted more shallow than 1.5 inches. The seed is close to the surface and it allows that nighttime cool air or daytime cool air to get down and get close to that seed, and gives you more fluctuation in the temperatures. The other thing I want to mention, this is a common statement I hear, is I hear a lot of farmers say they plant in their sandy soils first because the sandy soils warm up faster. Those coarse textured soils let warm air in, which warms the ground faster. I want to emphasize that even because it warms faster and it's hotter during the day, it cools faster at nighttime too. And you get more fluctuation in more coarse textured soils than you will in fine textured soils. So if you're planting your seed too shallow in sandy soils, in cold temperatures, you're at high risk for seedling injury and losing yield. So thin insulation would be planting into coarse soil, sandy soils, or planting it too shallow. Poorly installed insulation is more of a mechanical issue. So it would be your closing wheels not closing that seed trench properly, or it could be seed planted too shallow because of row unit bounce. I've seen a lot of times where the farmer will call and say, hey, there's something wrong. I didn't get really good emergence out here. And you walk, and the places where the seed corn didn't come up were places that the seed trench wasn't closed. So the seed came up where the gap was closed, and you had that insulation on top of the seed, but where that cold air got down and actually touched the seed, we had injury. I've seen very often when we have some ununiform emergence where a plant comes up 2 to 3 days after the rest. A lot of times it's the more shallow planted seed. A lot of farmers will think that planting your seed shallow helps it get out of the ground quicker, but planting it shallow lets that cool air in, the temperature fluctuates more, and you can run into damage. So a lot of times that small ear, that late developed plant, that late emerging plant can be related to shallow planting. So make sure you're planting your seed 2 inches deep. 1.5 inches is okay. I'd rather see 2 inches. The important thing, the takeaway message is that if you're going to plant early, if you have to plant early and you're going to plant in the cooler soils, make sure that you're planting deep enough. Don't necessarily start in your sandy soils because they warm up faster. They also cool down quicker at nighttime. But I highly recommend planting hybrids that have good, strong seedling vigor. So if I'm going to plant early, if I've got to get out there and get going, I'm not looking at maturity, I'm not looking at what farm this hybrid needs to go at. If I have to plant into adverse conditions because it's cold, I'm looking at seedling vigor. This is a big deal, and one hybrid can handle the stress and another one can't. That's something you need to look at. Your seed rep should be able to supply you with that information if you aren't sure about it. But pay close attention to the temperatures, your planter setup, the soil you're planting into. Buy a simple soil thermometer and keep a close eye on where your temperatures are at. Don't check it in the middle of the day when the sun has been shining on the ground. Check it first thing in the morning when it's at the coolest temperature. And study and know your hybrids. Know which hybrids can handle the cooler temperatures and know which ones can't. That's the order that I would plant them in if the temperatures are cold. So if you have any questions, you can give me a ring. My number is 804-445-4333, or you can check us out at tidewaterseed.com. Good luck out there, and let me know if I can help in any way. Happy planting.